Hello to all you patriots out there in podcast land and welcome. See, I pulled an Andrew there, and that doesn't happen very often. let's do that one again. Hello to all you patriots out there in podcast land, and welcome to episode 432 of Canadian Patriot Podcast, the number one live podcast in Canada, recorded September 23rd, 2024.
We need your help. To support the Canadian Patriot Podcast, visit patreon.com/CPP and become a Patreon. You can get a better quality version of the show for just $1 per episode. Show you're not a communist. Buy a CPP t-shirt for just $24.99 plus shipping and theft. Visit CanadianPatriotPodcast.com homepage and follow the link on the right.
Excellent. That brings us to our favorite segment of the show. What are we drinking? And one thing that you've done off the Patriot Challenge. As is tradition, we will start with Liz.
Sure. So I would say that I'm drinking decaf coffee. It's pretty great. Yeah, I mean, the older you get, the less caffeine you want to drink closer to bed.
Yep.
And
can confirm.
Yeah. And yeah, I actually haven't drank since probably the middle of beginning of August. So a couple months sober. I didn't have to do that, but I'm just choosing to do that on this health journey that I'm on.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
There you go.
Giving it a go. I mean, I drink a lot of Diet Coke now though, which is
it's fine.
Whatever. Some things that I'm, I guess, kind of doing is I'm practicing my ability to teach. I have kind of done some seminars in my professional sphere, but I'm also now teaching a ladies self-defense course, and that's going for about 6 weeks, and then we'll be cycling through that program again. So that involves me, having to brush up on some skills and such. So that's kind of taken up most of my time.
Cool.
Yeah. Pierre.
I am drinking whiskey, and when I'm done with that, I did pour a glass of brandy.
Wow.
Because I have not taken a health journey into the not drinking part. Things I've done on the Patriot Challenge. Haven't been good on the reading, but I have been doing more audible books and informative podcasts compared to just entertainment podcasts. So that has been a good drinking the waters, sort of practicing the skills as well. Trying to think through stuff instead of being reactive. It's not going well. But there is a small effort towards it.
Makes perfect.
Yeah. So trying to be less douchey. But most people make it really fucking hard to not be douchey. So half of the problem is them.
Oh,
that's fair. But at least you're admitting that the half of the problem is also them.
Yes.
I was gonna say self-awareness is pretty much your best.
Yeah. I'm well aware that you're
your success at this point.
That's all that matters.
Ridiculous.
What about you, Gavin?
I am drinking a rye and Diet Pepsi this evening, specifically Sazerac rye for those that enjoy their ryes. I'm doing the things that drink my water every day, because if I don't, everything hurts because I'm old and I need to make sure that I'm hydrated. It also helps with the random drinking and stuff like that happens every now and again. It's that whole like discipline equals freedom thing. So like if I am disciplined enough to drink the water every day, then if I decide to have a little bit of a freedom drink every now and again, I don't get dehydrated and have a hangover. So that's working out.
Absolute side note, I'm going to interrupt.
Yeah, that's fine.
Absolute side note, I saw a discipline equals freedom bumper sticker on a truck the other day, and I've never been more excited driving down the road. Anyways,
nice.
Continue.
I've got some Jocko posters that will be going up here in the basement office. I'm just waiting for them to finish getting plaqued, but I did get a magnet.
Okay.
That has like a picture of donuts with like a big circle and a cross through it, and it just says sugar coated lies.
Oh, I like it.
Yeah,
I
so
like
that
it.
lives on the fridge now.
That's
Um,
nice.
yeah, and then I've also been practicing skills and doing the teaching thing. So I was stepping in for a friend that couldn't make it to a rifle course, so I was teaching that to practice the things like the shooty things and also practice the teaching thing because all of those things are perishable skills. Because yeah,
Yes.
teaching people is different.
Yeah.
Just because you're good at a thing doesn't mean that you're a good teacher.
Yes.
And just because you're a good teacher doesn't mean that you're good at the thing.
That same principle applies to leadership. Just
Yeah.
because you're in the role doesn't mean you're good at it.
Usually,
Yes.
yeah. Usually it means
Me-
they're not.
Yeah.
Meet most managers.
Well, all right. And on now, I guess, to our other favorite topic. That
We have another one?
RCMP.
At our CMP.
Oh, I guess I skipped a few things here. Hard so on. Feedback.
Oh,
Feedback
okay.
at CanadianPatriotPodcast.com. You can send us an email. We appreciate your feedback. The show's available on iTunes. Upcoming events. The in-person Army run was just this last weekend that just passed. So you should have already done that if you're going to Ottawa to do it in person.
I was going to say, but you can do like you have
But-
the whole month of
but yes,
September or
you've got
something. Oh,
The-
6
the
to
virtual-
27th.
Yeah. So you have another week or so
Mhm.
to finish up if you're doing the virtual run. Anyways, back to that other favorite topic, that RCMP. So, article came out the other day, and at first I wasn't sure if this was a new one or an old one because there's so many things that they do, but it's a new one. So there was an ATIP, so an access to information request that was put in, and it has come out that the Royal Canadian Mounted Police have lost 205 firearms since 2020. So 122 handguns, 55 shotguns, 23 rifles, 3 submachine guns, and 2 full-size machine guns.
That's astounding.
Yeah.
And nearly half of those were lost in 2021 alone.
Mm-hmm. Well,
And okay, so this line though also says in this article that we're reading,
Yeah.
nearly half of the guns were lost in 2021 when a staggering 99 RCMP firearms were reported missing. So does that suggest that these are like personal, or I shouldn't say personal,
No.
federal issued?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
100%.
So they're
Yeah,
not
these
they're
are
not like
RCMP
evidence.
guns.
Yeah. But I was like, is this like stuff that they have?
Yeah, it
in
wasn't like an
their
officer involved
custody
shooting
and lost their
and
chain of custody.
no,
or
these
whatever.
are
Okay.
actual
these are patrol
yeah.
guns.
Yeah.
Like that go on their duty belt or in their vehicle or in their vault
Yeah.
at the station. Like these are the guns we're talking about.
Yeah,
not
so I
evidence.
remember a number of years ago we talked about an incident where there was an undercover RCMP, I believe, and he had his service pistol in his backpack
Oh my goodness.
at the mall.
Yeah, that's right.
And the backpack got stolen with the pistol in it.
Which is all very wild to me.
Yes. So
Yes.
I get it. Like people
shit
are human
happens.
and like they're gonna make mistakes or like, you know, high stress situation for certain things, but also like these are the people that we have, well, not we, but us as a nation at some point in history have determined are the ones that are responsible for administering the firearms program because they're the federal police, of which
Yes.
you are a law-abiding gun owner.
You have a bunch of laws you need to follow.
Yeah.
And how do you
So-
lose a handgun?
And if I lose a gun, I get in big fucking trouble.
Well,
Yeah.
so I guess you could sit here and you could speculate and get all riled up, but I mean, the system is clearly rigged for failure because if a civilian loses a firearm, like you said, it's like a trigger reaction that happens relatively quickly in terms of when they find out that it's missing or whatever, you know, the process goes very quickly. And that could be because, you know, like the different levels of court system, people get more amped up depending on the firearms charge, right?
Yep.
But I guess I just always picture, like, do you remember the Archie comics and like Moose?
Yeah.
Like, he was like the dumb jock.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you know, that's kind of what I've begun to picture when I think of, you know, federal
That are-
law enforcement.
100%.
And I just kind of put this into a side of my brain that says, I'm not surprised. This is ridiculous. What a mockery.
Mhm.
Like, you could really aggravate your brain trying to
Oh,
sort out the logic. It doesn't
Well, that-
exist.
So
no, it really doesn't. Like it's
I mean, it being lost. So I mean, the 122 handguns. I have a giant problem with that. Because that's normally on their duty belt, right? Like, or I don't know what the laws are specifically about if they can transport it home or it has to stay at the detachment, or that all varies depending where you live. But
I would assume it's probably different depending on where you're stationed.
Yeah,
because some
how-
folks are like
yeah.
remote, right?
yeah, they're on call 24/7, even though they're
Mhm.
off,
Yeah.
they're never off. Yeah, so
Yeah.
those probably. So, you know, shotguns, rifles, submachine guns, machine guns.
Let's talk about those.
So
Well,
hold on.
yeah.
So hold on. So those normally sit in the vehicle. So we all know it's probably someone stole it out of a vehicle.
Well,
But which I'm not saying is right. Like, that's a lot of guns. Don't get me wrong. But
yeah.
the fact that there's 122 handguns to sit on their hip
Mhm.
got lost
What?
is completely different than, like, you got a patrol carbine in the back and you stop somewhere, went for a piss, and somehow someone figured out how to open up the trunk and steal it. I'm not saying those numbers are okay.
Yeah.
I'm just saying those options seem probably easier for it to be skillfully acquired by someone that has malicious intent in comparison
Yeah.
to a handgun
Yeah, I mean,
that's
but
on their sides.
it's okay. So I don't necessarily disagree with that. Like, yeah, your pistol is the thing that you have with you all day, every day as part of your job. Whereas the other stuff,
Yeah.
like, they're not just walking around every day carrying a shotgun, right? Like, those
No,
are
sure.
given to them on an as needed basis and everything else.
Mhm.
But like of the 23 rifles, I'm curious.
Oh, 100% somebody took them home.
No, but like,
Like-
rifles is a pretty generic thing. So is that a bunch of like semi-auto AR-15s, or is that
their
like
Remington
bolt
700?
action sniper
Yeah.
rifle things, right?
Well, if they're RCMP issued, odds are probably not using bolt action rifles.
Well, I mean, but
Maybe they are.
the sniper teams that they would
Yeah.
have bolt action.
Well,
rifles.
and so this is also the scenario, like,
Yeah.
Okay, so number one, and at risk of sounding like I am in support of the RCMP, please do not take this as me defending them.
Yeah.
The reality is that there's something like 32,000 active personnel as of 2019. 19,000 of those are on patrol. So that
Yeah.
means that most likely they're going to have a side piece as well as, you know, maybe something in a vehicle, or they're on special assignment, whatever that looks like. So that's still only 1% if you took all of the firearm figure.
Oh, for sure.
Right?
But
So
on average,
so
they are
if we look-
losing 3.6 guns a month.
Yeah, like as a whole
Yeah, as a whole organization.
as
of
a
which,
whole
yes, there are
organization. A lot.
30,000 or whatever
Yeah.
ridiculous number, but like, yeah, then, you know, a lot of that is admin, but that's still
Still
A
19,000
lot
is
of-
what they figure is
Yeah.
patrol, right?
Yeah.
Which that
So
19,000
that number would bump up.
No.
Percentage would bump. No, so that percentage would bump up because they're doing the 3.6 whatever as a ratio of 30,000 employees,
No,
not
no,
19,000
I'm not.
officers.
I'm doing
I
it based
did.
on
I did.
19,000.
I missed that number. But
no,
yeah,
so
so
that's what
No,
I'm
my
saying.
math,
Yeah.
my math is based on the 19,000
Okay.
patrolmen.
Yeah.
It's
Okay, we
so
haven't gotten there
that's
yet. Sorry.
yeah. So that's like just over 1% if you only gave firearms to patrolmen
yes.
and
So,
not the
yeah, it's
admin
still,
team.
like,
So it's like
it
it's
is a low
there.
percentage.
It's a low percentage, but I mean the logistics still doesn't make sense. Like
And
you
that's
can look at it and say like, okay, realistically, like some of these things are probably lost. Maybe they're doing, I don't know, there's probably chaos at
Yeah.
a variety of different
They're-
scenarios that,
yeah,
they
they're-
would have their firearm or rifle or whatever.
have to
and
go
lose
hands
it.
on with the
Yeah,
suspect. They get in a fight,
something.
it falls out, someone
But-
grabs it and runs off. Like
I'm just
There are-
Yeah.
here's my thing though, is that all of those firearms are like cataloged and registered and
Yeah.
like super
but so like some of
possessed
them
by
could
the
be a little
government,
bit more.
yet they
like-
have disappeared off the face of the earth.
Yep.
And yet they're still able to like find caches of illegal guns. They can't find legal ones that are in a
But-
system.
Yeah, but that's just the thing.
That's
So
what
yeah,
I'm
like
saying.
of those
insanity.
23 rifles, though, like if those are ARs, why aren't they making more of a deal about this? Because those are so dangerous and deadly that they have to take them away from civilians. Because
Yes.
they're not full auto ones, because if they were, those would be in the other numbers. So
Yeah.
I'm curious what they are. Also, okay, yes. You shouldn't lose your pistol because it's the thing you have on you all the time. But also, like I said, if you're getting into like a fist fight and you're
altercation
rolling
or
on the
something.
ground and it falls out, I mean, I can understand how that would happen.
Yeah,
But and they've got like the thing. So like when they have the shotguns and the rifles in the car, it's supposed to be in the car. It's also supposed to be locked. They have a thing inside the thing. But what about the fucking machine guns?
yeah,
like,
no, that's a great question.
All
like,
the thing, like, okay, the
But-
pistols are regulated, but I can't just imagine that you walk into the armory at the RCMP detachment and go, yeah, I'm just gonna take this machine gun out real quick. Like those
So-
probably don't get handed out to everybody every day.
Yeah, so in
Yeah.
the chat it says like Chris says lost means also disappeared from storage, not issued to a person.
Yes, but that's where they
So-
also the
But-
RCMP access to information office, so the people
Yeah,
that handle
the
all of
ATIP,
this,
Yeah.
cannot determine specifically if a firearm was lost by a service member. So they don't even know necessarily.
Note to self, like, can I
I
just
would-
walk into a building and like go shopping?
Yeah,
One would think that
so-
there's some sort of accountability or
When-
surveillance or like,
Right.
yeah. So when I
In and
went and
out.
did the teaching thing at the Army,
yeah,
of which technically the RCMP is part of,
yeah,
and like they have legit machine guns and a need for legit machine guns, and I mean they lose things too. We talked about that before, but they were issued the things and they all have a serial number or a control tag or whatever they use to track that stuff. And they had to turn in the same one
yeah.
that they can do. And if it wasn't there, so like there was, so I imagine it's the same for the RCMP that like if I go and take this machine gun out of the armory, I have to sign for it. So
It's
how the
the-
fuck did they not know? Because it's either it was sitting in the armory and it didn't get signed out, in which case
Yep.
it's like the armory's responsibility and whoever's in charge of it, that falls on them. Or,
Yeah.
or there's someone that's not so honest in there.
I'm gonna say the second option.
It would not surprise me. I mean,
Right,
It's
like-
it's really interesting. My uncle, back in the day, before I knew what I wanted to do with my life, I thought it would be awesome to go into the RCMP. And I remember my uncle saying to me, I'll never forget this. He's like, I'd rather have a sister in a whorehouse than a niece in the RCMP. And I was like, excuse me, what? Now he
Is he
used
trying to
be
direct you or?
no, I think it was like the gravitas because he had worked in his
Okay.
profession. He had worked very closely with the RCMP. And he said the
Yeah.
problem is he's like, number one, they have like this checklist that they kind of go through. And I mean, if you've worked with any government agency of any kind, or you know somebody that has been employed by any government agency, does not need
Yeah.
to be law enforcement. You know that like they take the DEI stuff and all that very seriously. So you're very checklisted through. You're not necessarily qualified through, you're checklisted through.
Yeah.
And then you've got federal funding, which means that you just have to justify why you're buying it, and that justification is very subjective to just the person one level up from you, right? So
what you're
there's
implying is that we did too many diversity hires and that's why they lost so many guns?
no, I'm assuming that no, I'm assuming that like there probably wasn't as much of an issue with diversity hires back when my uncle was dealing with them, but I would assume that they had other issues. And I think it just speaks in greater volume to the concept of how they do their like whole system. Their whole system is like, hey, we've got the money. We're just going to throw money at this. We're just going to do this. It's fine until somebody does like an ATIP where it's
Yeah.
like, okay, yeah, maybe it's only 1% of the firearms
But-
issued to patrolmen, but like you have, it's not
Yeah.
even that there's like a little chink in the chain. It's like there's a whole section of the links missing that people
yeah.
are like,
They got
And-
switched to
oh,
plastic.
we don't know. We don't,
Yeah.
no, it
Yeah,
didn't even
and-
get switched. There's not even an attempt to
Yeah.
hide it. Like
Yeah,
it's
it's
just
like-
like, oh, hey,
Yeah.
oops, sorry, we don't know.
Oopsie.
Like,
Yeah.
you know, most places are like, hey, there's like an accounting error, or there's this error, or like, hey, we
Well,
kind of
and
have
there-
an idea of what's happened. There's a trend.
Somebody ultimately that is responsible, whereas here they're just like, yeah, they got lost and we don't even know. We can't even say that it was a person that lost it, which at least then there would
Yeah.
be someone accountable. Like if Jim goes out for duty and goes out with his pistol but doesn't come back with it, then Jim is guilty, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
he needs to explain why.
Yeah.
And yes, there might be
Yeah.
a legitimate reason,
Yeah.
but hey,
So might not be guilty, but at least he needs to answer questions.
Yeah.
yeah.
Well,
Right.
and part of me also, like a huge part of me is also aware that even with these ATIPs, what they do is like there's specific requirements that they have to fulfill.
Yeah.
So if it's not cited that like, hey, pretty much we want like a list of who was responsible for these and what was justified, you know,
Yeah.
and how and the process, then they're not going to release that information.
No,
They're going to give
but
some like,
people are going to start picking at
cockamamie
this
answer.
and whatnot. But
are they
Yeah.
though? I really don't
I
have a
imagine-
whole lot of
well,
hope for.
someone will, but maybe not anyone with any sort of sway. So it will probably go nowhere. It'll all get hushed up. But I mean, one of the other things that I found interesting, well, funny is maybe a better way to put this. They quoted a guy here. So when it comes to public safety, Blake Brown, legal historian and gun control expert and author of Arming and Disarming, a history of gun control in Canada, says the number of lost stolen civilian firearms in Canada is a far greater concern. In
Why?
2022 alone, there were 2,086 theft incidents where at least one firearm was stolen. This number is down from 2,196 the previous year, according to Statistics Canada. In 2022, so that same year that 2,086 guns were stolen firearms were used in at least 8 homicides.
Oh gosh.
And I did the math, or I did the investigating here, so I was interning. 874 homicides in Canada in 2022, 343 by guns. So not even half of the homicides, and 8 of those 343 were with stolen civilian guns. We don't know where the other ones are.
Let me tell you something. And
But
just
yes,
let me just throw this
super
idea.
concerning.
Yeah. Let me just throw this at you. And I don't know. I'm not really trying to solve problems today, but what happens if you just let more people own firearms and more of them? I don't think that people would be stealing as much. And
I have
the
a better
homicide rates would probably be
Yeah.
the same. Maybe
Yeah.
lower.
I
Maybe
have a
lower.
better idea. Not even allow people to purchase more. If people don't want guns, I don't want to force anybody to have a gun, but everybody that is a legal gun owner that would be able to prove that they're able and capable of carrying it in a respectable manner and actually have defense laws that wouldn't incriminate the person that is trying to defend themselves for their own life, right? Like if someone comes into my house and tries to do harm to my family and I do something like take a baseball bat to them, let's not even take a firearm into consideration, right? I have a giant possibility of getting charged.
You
doing that.
almost are guaranteed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah,
mean,
it's almost
I'm-
guaranteed. Like there's a very small thing where someone's just going to be like, I would have done, like, even though everybody will say, hey, I would have done the same, right? That's a giant legal proceeding. So to start with, I didn't use the guns. They're going to take all my guns. Now I got to fight to get my guns back. They're probably not going to allow me to do it. So I've lost thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars of investments that I do as pastime. So I'm like, I think we should just change that into a factor of, if fine, you just want to shoot and go to the range or whatever, but and I trust me, I'm the last person that's going to say there should be regulations around it. But if you are a person where we decided to change the laws and be a real country that you do want to carry, whether open carry, concealed carry, I don't care what the carry is. I do find that you can't just give everybody that. I do find there has to be
Oh, I think that
a
that's
qualification of
but-
some
but
some
also,
sort.
like,
you
you're-
go to
you're
the
not
States and you have open
stopping-
carry. They
Yeah.
don't give it to just everybody.
except
you still
some
have to-
states do.
Do they now?
Unless they,
There's
they
a
have
lot of states that are
constitutional.
going
Yeah,
constitutional
constitutional.
because they have found
Yeah.
that like criminals
Yeah.
are going to do it anyways. They don't care.
Well, that's the
Yeah.
thing. The criminals are not the law-abiding individuals.
yeah,
So,
Mhm.
like,
So many
And-
many states have
All
just
you're
gone
doing is-
constitutional.
preventing honest law-abiding people from doing the thing. But
well, do you remember the sheriff out of Florida that was
Fuck, I
like,
love that guy.
Oh,
we
man.
prefer if you shoot him.
yeah, he's like,
Yeah.
we prefer if you save some tax dollars. He's like, come into the precinct on the weekends. We've got a gun safety course. Take
Yeah.
that. He's like,
Yeah.
we want people to find out that what happens when you
Yeah.
enter a home unwelcomed.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Right, and I love
Okay.
that one that was on Instagram, where it was like the U.S. and then the Canadian one where it was Toronto police. I was just like,
oh,
leave your
leave your
vehicle
keys, leave your keys
by the front door.
Like, why don't
Yeah,
I just
so
leave
when
the
they break
doors
it-
unlocked on the car and
Yeah,
just leave
and
the
then
keys
that's
in
when
there?
all the videos of people pouring tea and
But-
putting
Yeah,
fucking
yeah.
right.
But I mean,
it's
it's
just
what
like,
a
yeah,
legacy to
there's-
leave
this is the
behind,
thing though that I
eh?
find interesting. So
Yeah.
this Blake Brown guy,
Mhm.
right? He thinks
Yeah.
these civilian things. So if he's not all that concerned about the 1% of guns that go missing in government hands, right? Why is he so concerned about the 0.38%? So, like, not even half, percentage wise, that end up being used in a homicide that gets stolen, right? Like, if
And-
the 1% isn't a problem, then 0.38%, it means that the whole thing is also not a problem. Like,
I guess like
we're less of a statistic.
but
than
he's
they
just
are.
trying to make it look like, oh, we got to
Yeah.
do all this because he's a gun control expert.
yeah.
Which, if he was an expert, then like, why can't he sort all of this stuff out and just that I can have a machine gun?
Yeah,
But wow,
and
but
I
this
think
is
we could sit
stupid.
there. I think we could sit there and like,
Yeah.
we can beat this.
well, there's no
Oh, we could flog this dead horse all night.
yeah,
Yeah,
and
I'm
this is the problem
Yeah.
though, is that we just like there's no solution and there's no accountability. Like,
That's
who's making a government agency accountable? Another
That's the
government
problem.
agency. There's no accountability yet. It's kind of like do as I say, not as I do.
well, and that's the
Or
thing
it's
that
like
annoys
rules
me about
for
the whole thing
me
is
and
that,
not
like,
for me.
it's not just that there's no accountability, but these are the people that hold us accountable if we do the
Mhm.
exact same
Right.
thing, yet no
Right.
one is holding them to not even a higher standard, which, like, if they're the ones that are going to be enforcing the rule, they should be. They're not
Mhm.
even being held to the same standard.
Agreed.
Right, and right. So when we all applied for our firearms license and we got it successfully, we gave up the right of technically at any point, if you live
They
in a
can-
state where RCMP, like someone from the state, whether it be local, federal, provincial police, can knock on my door at 2:30 in the morning and say, "Hey, we want to do a spot check. Where's your guns? Where's your ammo? If you have restricted, they need to be registered. Okay, show me this one. Show me this one. Blah 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 blah."
Yeah.
So, right, these are the people that decide whether we are worthy every day of keeping our gun license. They are the ones
Yeah.
that enforce all the laws and have put everything forward for all those things. Now we are saying that probably nobody's being held accountable, and like we've said earlier, they're probably not going to say who's in trouble, and they're probably going to sweep
No,
that under the
but
rug. If anybody has been held accountable, I'm not saying that they did, but if someone has been held accountable for even half of these, it's going to be pushed under the rug, and they're not going to talk
oh,
about it.
absolutely.
So, I mean, hopefully they figure out the accountability for every single weapon that was taken, just like those 2,086 thefts. Someone got in trouble somewhere. And, I would have loved to see how many of those were probably like, someone's husband passed away and, he had 4 or 5 guns in the basement and, his wife, widow, doesn't go downstairs and they went missing and nobody knows because those family heirlooms are lost on society nowadays where guns are bad for everybody. Where it was probably mishandling storage and accountability on the fact that someone with a license wasn't on and all that stuff. But, that's another side tangent we won't get into.
That's all right. We'll go on to another one that is likely going to be a heated discussion.
Doesn't take
Although not
much.
really, because it shouldn't, because we're not talking about the actual protest, but the fact that the Toronto District School Board bus students as part of a field trip to a protest.
That's insanity.
So it seems that on Wednesday, the Toronto District School Board, an undisclosed number of students attended the Grassy Narrows Rivers Run, which was organized to highlight the mercury contamination within the Northern Ontario First Nations.
Yeah.
And then at some point, some of the students started yelling out, "From Turtle Island to Palestine, occupation is a crime." So I don't care where you fall on either of those things, because really it's irrelevant to me, because I believe that anyone should have the ability to protest peacefully, whether I agree with it or not.
Agreed.
Yes.
The school board, though, should not be taking students to go and participate in it. That is not.
But there's so many things about this.
Me.
But there's so many things about this that I would question. Like, I don't question because I understand the status of our culture, like our society these days.
Yeah.
So I don't put it past, but I'm kind of the belief that, like, indoctrinating children in a state school about socialist ideologies, like, you're not teaching them the theory of independent thought.
Yeah.
You're actually teaching them an end result, and they don't actually have the critical capacity to differentiate what is okay for themselves or what is not okay for themselves in terms of belief systems. So the fact that they went to this run, I don't know anything really about it. And I mean, it kind of ties in Indigenous and, like, environmentalism.
Yeah, so you're checking off the boxes.
Right. But that's the thing, is that there's some boxes, right? And it's very exclusive. It's not inclusive. Like, I think about the Terry Fox run for decades. That's like the only thing people did.
Yeah.
And he was like just a Canadian icon. Right? Like that's a little different. It's very inclusive. Still is, yes.
He still is to most Canadians. Some Canadians,
but it's not
think
politicized.
It's not,
but it's not politicized. That's the difference. Right?
And I don't want to say that other runs and or protesters aren't for a good cause, because I mean, I guess it depends on what side you are. But like the Terry Fox run is pretty, apolitical. Everyone is like, fuck cancer, right? I don't like.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe not everyone. Maybe there's a couple of weirdos out that are like, pro cancer,
but also,
but like
it's pretty. It's kind of
a different thing. Yeah.
Right. And I think that what's happened, and this is the criticism maybe that I'm trying to get to. And, I know that this is not public opinion number one, positive opinion for the public number one. But the idea of just kind of forcing certain political ideologies in a public state that way is the problem. Like, it's no different, like pride flags, Ukrainian flags, all of this stuff. If you want to do that at your home, that totally makes sense. Because you know what? Nobody is telling you that you can't do that. But when you start seeing it put into a public school system, you know that your kids aren't learning their reading, their writing, their math. They're learning how to be political activists that are conditioned to just
Yeah.
follow like an indoctrination that has been presented by the current ruling government, whatever you want to say.
Well, and part of the other problem I have with all of this is like, okay, what if I am pro one of those things but not the other?
Mhm,
They always start like lumping in
mhm.
multiple things, and like it's not just the left, the right does this too, because like it was the same thing
Oh,
when
for
we were
sure.
down at the Freedom Convoy thing. You started to see stuff about like digital currency and all
Oh,
this,
yeah,
and you're
yeah,
like,
for sure.
okay, like this is
Stop
about
conflating one with the other.
one thing, and I
Yeah.
like, and like I'm
And I mean, sure, some things
some of them
run
relate.
parallel. Some things run parallel and are
But-
symptoms of the same issue. But okay, so a good example, Toronto School Board. We all know that kids aren't going to say no to this for a couple of reasons. Number one, their parents are at work, so they're not going to pull their kids out unless you're like morally resolute against or for something.
Yep.
So kids are going to this run, whether they believe in it or not.
And if it's an
Second,
optional
their
thing,
friends are going.
but
so
they're
of
going to
course
go
they're
because
gonna
at least
go.
they're not going to sit at their desk.
Absolutely.
Like they probably don't care one way or the other, but it's like, well, shit, if I don't go, I have to be sitting in class.
Also, was this stated as a, so I mean, assuming I got a sign for my daughter going somewhere other than the school property.
It's
So
considered a school thing.
Yeah, but what was the school thing supposed to be for
An
something else? And
educational experience
yeah,
where
but it was
students would hear from
supposed to go.
Indigenous voices
Yeah.
about the challenges
Exactly.
facing the people of Grassy Narrows.
Exactly. So this was intentionally supposed to be them going to figure out about the mercury and the reserves, blah blah blah.
Well,
So, and it turned into something else. So I have more questions on that. That was it ill-intentioned, as in, hey, we're going to piggyback off this because right next door they're doing something, or was the school board just really shitty at looking and be like, hey, there's going to be a Palestine thing that walks right by, and then they piggybacked off it.
But that's also part of the responsibility of being a teacher or a leader, whoever's in charge of the group. And like you are now in charge of the students. And like, okay, so maybe the intentions were there and they did go to do this thing that wasn't political. And it was just that these are the challenges that these people are facing.
and
We're not
like,
saying
is semi sort of political in any way, because
but like
a little bit, but it's also like it's
more of a
well,
social
yeah.
issue than a political issue, even though the solution might be a political one or have
Right,
some
sure.
political things. But if they were going to simply learn about these people and how they live and the challenges that they face, good or bad, that's fine, right? We should learn about people. And if all of a sudden a protest, and I don't care what the protest is, it could be anything.
Yeah, it
happens to go by.
Shouldn't be around your kids.
Then it should be up to the leaders of the thing to go, you know what, maybe we need to call this field trip a little early because this situation has changed and this is not something we should be exposing children to. Or
absolutely agree.
Use smart judgment.
My thing though on the whole, I think it's important for kids to understand, especially what's going on in Grassy Narrows. Like, I do think that that's a really important part of a civics, situation, and understanding is a huge part of, current Canadian social conditions. And environmentalism, like super important. However, number one, why did you have to take kids off site to go on a run that is zero relevance to this topic? Like, a run does not equate. Like, a Terry Fox run makes sense. The dude ran across Canada.
Yeah,
like that makes sense. Of
all
sense.
of the walks and runs going on in this country, of
sense.
which there are so many now, and it's starting to like affect them.
Astounding.
I volunteered at the Terry Fox run the other weekend, and there was almost nobody there.
Of course, because there's so many other stuff.
And there's so many, and they're things. All like, run for a cure, do this and that, and everything. They're all runs, and they're all for cancer. And like, can we just pick one?
Right. Well, I mean, even the Heart and Stroke Foundation, it's like, oh yeah, you're out doing activity as a combat of like heart and stroke disease, like heart disease. So there's certain like connections. I know, but that's a whole other thing. but like you
Yeah,
can make
we'll
connections to
sidebar
that. I was gonna say that's a whole other
Mhm.
thing, but you can make those connections with this one. Like it just sounds like yes,
Yeah.
teach the kids about these things, bring some people in to talk about it, do some stuff, but
Yeah, bring
the
some
fact
people in.
yes, but the fact
Yeah.
that you're like, oh hey, let's take
Yeah.
these kids to a place that maybe protests are a risk.
Yeah.
Who knows? Let's take them off site because it's an educational experience. You weren't going to Grassy Narrows.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
downtown Toronto isn't the same thing. You know,
I mean,
like
there's a bunch of contamination there, but
yeah, that's
Yeah.
different. Different type of
that's
contamination.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So like,
I just think of it that
it's-
way, is that it's all just a big cluster mess.
yeah, it's a clusterfuck. Like, you know, it would be different if you could find, say the protest that was going on, Free Palestine and whatever the fuck the other one was. Like,
I think they
it would be
piggybacked.
Yeah.
well, no, I'm not saying what they intentionally went for, right? The
Oh, okay.
whatever, like the Mercury, but Free Palestine and whatever the other one is on the Palestine thing. Not that, but I'm very misinformed on world defense.
Pro
but
Israel or pro Palestine. Those are
that
the
one,
two.
right?
Okay, I was like,
Those are the two.
what?
Yeah, so those are the two, right? So I
Yeah.
would be way more interested if somehow you can find a level-headed person on both sides that could keep fairly calm and have a presentation with people of age, right? And I mean, that's up for debate on age of grades or whatever, but to go to the school and have a conversation and say, hey, this is our point of view. And you know, like, I find that would be way better than just fucking watch the news and get whatever.
Even
Like,
then, like, I
we
mean-
need to get back to that of
So
finding
when I-
Oh, like a
level-headed
debate
people.
team?
Yeah, so when
There
I
you
was
go.
in school,
That's it.
I had
Yeah,
politics as a class, and
Yeah.
I
Yes,
took it
I did
because
too.
I enjoyed it. And
I had to.
yeah, and we would look at
And you could
world
probably
issue-
debate things, right?
Yeah, we would look at world issues,
Mhm.
but you weren't necessarily, you didn't get to pick what side you were on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You were given a side, and whether you believed it or not, you had to research it from that
And
point
fight
of view
and fight it.
and present the argument on whatever
Why?
one. So it wasn't as, it didn't ever get as heated because there was no buy-in and you were hearing both sides of it. And it
Mhm.
was up to you to do the research and figure it out. So you can talk about these complex issues in school and doing it in a way that is a learning thing that doesn't involve the students actually getting political. And like,
Yep.
okay, if the students want to have like a student body that does get engaged in things, the school should not necessarily facilitate those things, but not outright ban them
Dismiss it.
unless it's,
Yeah.
you know,
We used to have
No,
clubs in school,
yes.
which I think was like
Yeah.
a good way to do it. So, you know, over the lunch
Yeah.
hour or
But
right
you
after
have to
school.
allow both.
But any club could be organized.
Yeah.
Like it didn't
So if they
it
were to
didn't
allow
really
the
matter.
pro-Palestine club, they would also have to
Mhm.
allow the pro-Israel club.
Well,
and they
if
would
there was
have to,
people that wanted to
if
create
they,
it, right?
yes.
So that's the thing, is that it was like it was based on, I guess, everybody's desire, you know, like consumer. But at the same time, you weren't allowed to pull shit.
Yeah.
No,
Like otherwise
and,
your club would get canceled. Like that was it. Like you still
Yes,
had
they
to
had
all
operate
adhere
within
to the
reason.
same guidelines, the same code of conduct,
Yeah.
that sort of
Right.
thing. And like I don't get the chaos that they're allowing.
Yeah.
Like it
No,
doesn't make
and-
sense. I don't care what you're protesting. There is such
And
thing as a peaceful protest.
absolutely. Look at the Trika convoy, but it depends
Yeah,
which
that's a
side of
whole
the
other
news you
thing.
watch.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure when that was when we were in school, at least, I'm pretty sure you had to get like a teacher on board
Yeah, you
as
did.
like the supervisor, right? So
Yep.
it's like there were still some regulations that you couldn't just be like, hey, I
No,
want
it
to make
wasn't
a
just a
KKK
free for
club,
all.
right? Like
no, but
it
there
was-
was it would be
But
hard
I-
pressed to find a teacher that wasn't into, you know, like seeing student engagement though.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, but at the same time, they're
know?
not going to go like you're not
No,
going to get
you're
a
right.
teacher that's going to go completely against you. So yeah, you
Absolutely.
might have to figure out the teacher that would be down and being like, "Hey, I want to
Yes.
make a group of people that like listening to metal music." You're probably not going to find the classical art teacher,
Yes.
wanting to be part of that. So like you did have to find someone,
To pick a
but
teacher that would be at least
the-
open to the idea, but like,
yeah,
but that's what it,
yeah,
yeah, it
and
should,
it should go back to that. Like,
yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong, I never participated in any of them in
Yeah.
school, but the option was there.
Yes,
we had
and that's-
debates, we had this class, we had this,
should
and
be how it is. And they,
yeah,
it's one thing when it's okay. We're not like necessarily like organizing it, but if the students want to organize it, we're not going to prevent them from doing it so long as it like is respectful.
yeah,
They
yeah,
certainly
the
shouldn't
non
be busing
douchebag.
people to things because it's like, well, what if the people on the other side of this don't like agree, and now all of a sudden you're taking their kids there, and it's like, this is
Yeah.
ridiculous. Like,
It is, and I have a feeling we're never going to find out who fucked up, and right because
no,
it's
again, there's probably going to be
it's
no accountability.
yeah, no accountability. Right, but like I'm also worried that this is going to prevent many people from wanting to send their kids to any field trips that could be good, right? Like my daughter went to one. They went to like an aerial park, like
Oh, that's
hang on
cool.
ropes and what. Yeah, so I'm like, that's good for self-esteem. That's good for
Yeah.
conquering fears. You've got your friends there to cheer you on. Like that's good, right? But
That's a field trip.
that's a field trip. But like
Yeah.
going to this random place, like those
Yeah.
people could have showed up. Like if you got to show off a fish, like bring a fish tank, which they probably didn't because they were downtown Toronto. So it's like
They could have brought somebody in to talk
Yeah.
about that stuff because
That's
like
that's kind of what I'm saying is that I think that there's like some I don't want to say nefarious things, but I think it's a thoughtlessness. Like there's
I
no
think that's what
longer
it is
this
more than anything else. It's
yeah, like there's
Yeah.
no longer there's this I don't know what it is, and I don't know when this shift happened, but there's kind of this weird assumption that kids are adults
Yeah.
and they treat them like that. Like you see that in a great example is the sexual education. Like in the school, it used to be like, oh, hey, abstinence, like safest, but here's the tools if you can't resist the urge. Now it's
Yeah.
like, oh, hey, you're 5 years old, so
Yeah.
we're gonna start telling you about this now. So there's
by
that
the
side
time
of
you're
it, but
12,
yeah,
you can learn how to
exactly.
fist someone's butthole in a safe manner.
Thanks,
Right, like-
Kara.
yeah.
No,
I mean,
but
that's-
like you think like
Right.
but that's the unfortunate thing. I am not joking about that. That is part of the
No.
curriculum.
I mean, like I've said
and
before, like
that
my
should never be.
my
Well, and-
my high school handed out pamphlets on how to do meth
Yeah, that
as
stuff is
part
so
of like
wild.
a harm reduction in education.
Yeah.
It's like,
Right.
okay, I understand harm reduction, but also don't teach kids how to do meth.
Well, yes, and
Right.
this is
Right?
kind of
Like-
the problem, right? Is that
100%.
this is the same thing that's going on. Is like, oh, hey, these kids, we don't have the same safety and security concept that we
Yeah.
historically have had. Like the goal to protect children at all costs does not exist.
Yeah,
It
and
does not
maybe-
exist.
Maybe some of our historical boundaries for children were a little bit like too far the other way, where we were babying people a little too
Sure.
much.
Yeah.
But we've definitely swung so far the other way that we need to bring it back to the center in not just in like almost everything, it seems.
Yeah.
And just be not so ridiculous.
Well, I think that there's a very fine line, and I guess not necessarily fine line. I think that there's context in which children need to grow up more and also be protected more.
Yes.
Right? So the
Oh.
line would be, you think back to it's probably not the best example, but like farm kids 50 years ago, kids that are lying about their age to go to the military, to join the military, like that toughness, that fortitude, that drive,
Yes,
like
we need to,
that
like,
needs to be more
Not baby
but like
kids so
yeah,
much. Like when we're
exactly.
like, oh, this playground needs to be like cork floor and everything
Yeah.
is made out of
no, whatever
soft
happened to those
plastics
friggin'
and
steel slides that
right,
burn
like
your
not be
butt?
so like
Burned.
Burned.
Yeah.
Fuck.
you wore
Fuck,
shorts.
paper and-
Or,
And
you know
like-
what I miss? Those twirly like merry-go-round looking
Oh,
things.
fuck yeah,
you're
where your
like,
buddies
how
just
can
let
you
you
try
go.
and like launch kids off of it?
But
Yeah, you get
next
the
time
bike
you
on the
come
side.
over to the house, Liz, there is one at the park not far from
Really?
here. Yeah.
Yeah, we're
I'm
going
not,
to the park,
I'm not
man.
sure why it's still there, but it
I
is
love
there.
it. We are going to the park.
Yeah.
Why? Because nobody's died yet.
Yeah,
But also,
that's
before we
probably
go to the next one, I figured out how to solve this field trip issue.
Okay.
No more field trips.
So I'm not opposed to field trips, educational field trips like this. Invite the person to the school and put them in the auditorium, gym, whatever. If they say they can't do that, obviously what you're trying to teach and keep kids aware of is obviously not important enough that the people that feel this is something important to tell people
Yeah.
can't shift around between schools.
Yeah.
What?
I
It's
mean,
obviously not important enough.
yeah, it's not important enough. Like, hey, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that, hey, you got to spend $20,000. I'm sure. I mean, look at the school just being like, school have funds.
You know
can ask
what?
government for things like this. No, but let's say, okay, fine. It's going
Yeah.
to cost us, $150 in gas.
Right. I was gonna say,
whatever.
I
Yeah,
used to tour around when I was like, how old was I? Like 18. I was a fair ambassador. So I had a little tiara, a little sash, and I used to go around with this sweet old woman who was like the Egg Society representative. And I didn't have to pay for shit, but like we'd go around and talk to kids about like, I don't know, agriculture and things like that. And they just like my tiara. So it was great. But, like you do the things to get the message across.
Yeah. So if it's something hard, the invitation should have been there and might not be the same day, or you can figure out your schedule. You can move around your schedule. If this is something that is very strong in someone's belief, they will make accommodations to get the message across.
Well,
So
yeah, if
right
you
there,
can't spend a
let's-
small amount of money to get your point across to
But I mean, I'm also saying like, hey, I'm all up for spending money to get a point across, but I'm also not going to go broke, but
Yeah.
as long as I break even, hey,
Yeah.
or I lost, I'm not going to buy coffee at Tim Hortons for the next week because that's what it cost me in comparison to whatever. Yeah, there's a bunch of things, but there you go. Yeah, problem solved. Toronto board can help thank me for that.
Good job, Pierre.
Hmm.
Good job.
There's a little bit of brandy will solve any issues they got.
It's true.
I can make it happen.
And Decaf is rocking it pretty hard tonight.
All right, on to the next one, where at least it seems there has been some accountability. Canadian Revenue Agency, so the CRA, has provided new data on the number of employees who were found to have received the Canada Emergency Response Benefit, so CERB, that the money that the government was giving out during COVID. The investigation into inappropriate CERB payments began in June of 2023. All CRA employees were reviewed and 600 were identified as requiring additional investigations.
That's a lot.
So
And as of right now,
way
they
too
are
many questions.
almost at half of those 600 have been determined to be having inappropriate money.
It's
and not
so
eligible.
interesting that you say that, because I have encountered that with, some people like in the industry that I work in, just working in human resources. You get asked a lot of questions by people, and that's a lot of folks who, I think got screwed because and I would say probably even like public servants, because there was not a whole lot of time between the announcement of CERB and when they started handing it out.
Yep.
Like people didn't know what they were getting into, and there was no
No.
vetting process. And I kind of feel like really bad about that, because I mean, probably CRA people had a little bit more insight,
Yes.
but
I also
how many
I did-
CRA workers are fired? Like 289 or something?
Well,
Something like that.
289 have been they said that they weren't eligible. But
Yeah,
anyone
which
who
is,
is
I
found
think
to
that
be
they-
ineligible for CERB, including CRA employees, who inappropriately applied for and received it will be required to repay the amounts if they haven't already done so.
So also CERB. So if you were laid off, you were waiter, and any of those things that government mandated shutting down. A lot of those people been working there for a long time and attempted to apply for EI,
Mhm.
which they have paid into for many years. And many of those people didn't even get the EI. They got direct CERB.
Yep.
So a giant fault is on them. But like COVID did not affect my paycheck at all. I was good. I was happy with how that went. Did not affect my daily job. I got 40 hours a week. Nothing changed. I mean, I had to wear a stupid fucking face diaper, but but all in all, it went well for me. So, but I could have easily went online, put the info in, and gotten CERB.
Yeah.
Right. So and I would have gotten the check. Now I would be answering for it and having to pay back, blah blah blah. So I made sure that never happened. So
Yeah.
I mean, so
But
how
people
are
weren't
you?
told that you had to pay it back, though. That was the
But
problem.
this is the
Yeah,
thing,
so-
though, is it's so
but
crazy
it
about
doesn't
this. Is
matter.
they're telling,
This
oh,
was-
it's okay. Even the ineligible ones have to pay back, and it's like, but so did the eligible ones.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So
And
that's the
It
other
doesn't
problem.
matter.
It was
Yeah.
like this weird loan that they didn't tell people there was a loan.
Yeah.
Well, and so that's what sort of happened
Yeah.
to us. Like, so I mean, myself, like Pierre, like I was fine. I didn't have to do
Yeah, me
any of
too.
this stuff. But Angela worked retail,
Mhm.
so she was deemed unable to work because she was not
Yeah.
essential.
Due to government
Yeah.
mandates.
And so, like, she applied for EI because that's what everyone else was doing.
Yeah.
But
And got
Hey.
CERB.
she never applied to CERB, but
Nope.
that's what she ended up getting, and now they're wanting it back.
Yeah.
Take
It's
it
like,
from my EI.
they're also saying here though that like there are CRA employees that did apply, some 100 and something here, that were eligible for CERB.
184, I think.
Yeah,
Remember, I saw in here.
but like,
I want to say
That's still a
no,
lot.
135. 135, sorry.
why were
Employees
they
have been
eligible? What
found
made the
to be
difference?
eligible. So
Yeah.
Well, it's possible that they got like that they reduced the, it could have been a support staff or something. It could have been a
I was just thinking.
receptionist or a maintenance person, like
Well,
maintenance
still,
support.
like, it just seems ridiculous. So I mean, yeah,
well, yeah,
they're
it does.
200 and so
89, something like that.
so yeah, in their last thing in March, it was 232, and now we're up to 289. And yeah, they've been fired. So at least there's some accountability, but like they're making like a big deal that they're also paying it back. It's like, but like everyone has to pay this back.
Yeah.
Everyone.
Even the people that were technically eligible
have
Yeah.
to pay it back. Like it was the
Right.
biggest load of
Scam.
shit
Scam.
ever.
It's
So
like,
the-
what is
the
it?
giant.
A Ponzi scheme? No,
Yeah.
but I don't think that's what it defines.
No, so that's
but-
what CPP is. Okay, but so this investigation started in June 2023. So as you read through this article, fuck, I had it. No, I lost it. Son of a bitch. March to September in 2020. That's when CERB came out. And then when was the last payment, which changed to CERB? Yeah, that ended in December 2021. So technically, all this money should have been accounted for, and you should have had to ask questions or do something in tax return year or March, April 2022. Why are we only doing an investigation 18 months after the fact?
Oh no, that's a whole other problem because the criminal justice system and the court system is also backed up like 2.5 years. So
Yeah, but
it's
so-
less to do with that and more to do with like caseload is just not
Yeah, but-
there.
But CRA, right? So I submit all my T4s and I forgot a piece of paper. CRA
Oh
tells me
yeah, I
within
know
fucking
the collections department is always on time.
So why was collections not figured out that, hey, you got CERB?
Let's
you
file
also
that
don't-
in the same on the same shelf as, oh, you're a legal firearms owner, and we know when you've like taken a left instead of a right on the way to your range. But we
Yeah.
don't know where these 200 some odd firearms are that the
That we
government
own.
has issued.
Yeah, that we
Let's
own.
put it in the same
Yeah.
category and
Yeah.
say that
Great.
is
So
in the land of
You
lost socks. that
deviated off of
is-
your route by 3 kilometers
Yeah.
to go and take a
Yeah.
piss.
Yeah, we know that about you,
Yeah.
but we can't find where our machine guns are.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's put it in the same category.
Yeah, not your machine guns,
Unanswerable.
our machine guns.
Right, exactly.
I'm gonna
And
have to have a
I
few more
do-
drinks, and we're just gonna have a spicy night real soon.
Well,
Yeah,
I
wow.
actually am about to log off the spice, so have a good night,
There you go.
folks.
Have a wonderful evening.
Have a
Liz.
I'm
wonderful evening.
going to. Thank you.
Where before you leave, where can people find you?
Right here. That's it.
Yep.
Where can they sign up for your women's self-defense class?
Oh, Crossroads Martial Fitness Academy.
There you go. In
Does it
case
have
they
to
get
be-
taken on a field trip and all of a sudden a protest.
Do they have to be cis women to sign up?
Well, I mean, I'm gonna be honest. So it's run by a church. So if you're not a cis woman that identifies as a woman, you can show up, but let me be very clear. First of all, you're gonna have to deal with me. Second of
Mm.
all, I'm gonna pray for you hard. So
But you're also not going to do the old Crocodile Dundee to check and make sure that they are or aren't.
no,
Grab his dick and twist
No.
it.
also not gonna happen. I
Yeah.
don't care enough.
And
I'm
surprisingly, that doesn't work that well as a self-defense move.
also I don't care enough. If
Yeah.
if you're that type of person, it's usually pretty evident pretty quick. And then again, you get to deal with me. So that's a whole other story. So
All right. Well,
She seems
Enjoy.
sweet online, but when you meet her
Yeah.
in person, she can be
you're just pissed because I'm like a full head taller than you.
100%.
true.
First time I
Yeah.
opened up the door, I was like, "What the fuck?" You
Yeah,
look so much
I
shorter
know.
on.
And then I was like, what the fuck? You're so much shorter.
Yeah, you're so much shorter. I could pick you up and throw you across the room. Yeah, probably.
It's true. It's true.
Yeah. Subscribe
Anyways,
to our
folks.
OnlyFans to see videos of that.
No. Somebody's got to pay me a lot of money.
Yeah,
See
the
videos of
people paying.
anything.
To,
No, like
Yeah.
a lot more than
no, you don't have to see the video where it's a video of you throwing Pierre, and people are going to pay to watch that.
Yeah.
okay.
We'll
Okay,
give you
that's
some of the
better.
I'm
money.
down.
We'll give you
Yeah,
some
I'm
of the
down.
money. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
okay.
we're gonna split
Okay.
it.
20
Yeah.
bucks is
Yeah,
better
20
be
bucks.
100 bucks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
20
Cool.
bucks nowadays will get you like half a grape.
Yeah. Also true.
Yeah.
No, we can't say 20 bucks is 20 bucks anymore. No,
Yeah.
no. No,
I mean,
no.
it is, but it's not what it used
Tank
to
of
be.
gas
that's
is
for
a
sure.
tank of gas.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. Okay,
Yeah.
well, have a good night.
You too,
All right.
Liz.
We'll
Bye.
see ya. Bye.
All right. On to the next
number
one.
2.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Is COVID SEC XEC? I don't know how you pronounce that. I don't know if it's XEC or SEC or EXIC or whatever it is, but apparently, is it worse than other variants?
I can't wrap my head around it still being a thing.
Yeah, I mean, I guess they're trying to like ramp up the scare tactics again because it's the start of fall, meaning that more people are thinking about protecting themselves from the flu and other illnesses, including COVID-19. So you mean
Which is the flu? So
I'm sure we're gonna get another ding here, but
Oh, 100% we're
Yeah.
getting a ding because I got so many questions. So
yeah.
how do you test for variants?
Well, I am not a virologist, but I imagine that
No.
they would have to like somehow isolate the particular virus and then
Yeah.
put it under the microscope and do all of the things. But there apparently the COVID XEC is a hybrid of Omicron subvariants KS.1.1 and KP.3.3.
So when did
According
those
to
come
the
out?
Public Health Agency of Canada. I'm not sure, but apparently this variant was first detected on May 16th, and 28 countries have reported sequences of it as of September 18th.
So what?
So says the WHO,
Yeah,
not the
so
man,
we
the World Health Organization.
so 18th. So we're less than 10 days. And they've isolated, did the whole scan.
Well,
Put
May
all the things under the microscope.
16th to till now. So May,
Oh,
June,
okay.
July, August.
First
so
it-
four
okay.
months.
Okay, but
to see.
how
But
how did they determine that May 6th? Like, I got so many questions because
they're
like
also
I'm
reviewing the available evidence of variants to determine if it should be classified as a variant or not under monitoring. So like
yeah,
they've determined that it is, but also it's not necessarily officially a thing.
yeah.
And so they're not really sure how to scare people anymore, I guess. They keep using the same thing.
Yeah, and I mean, I'll I'll say without any offense, if anybody ever hears this, that is a thing. Like, um, someone said they got COVID, and I was like, "Is that still a thing? Like, is it just the flu?" And they were like, "No, it's COVID." And I was like, "Okay, we're not talking about this." I'm like I don't want to knock on you. I don't want to have this debate. It's like because I'm gonna start getting real angry.
Well, but I
You
mean,
say
like,
you got
fine.
it
If
compared to
you
that, fine. Yeah.
is it something different than if we talk about like influenza, like the actual flu and the variants of
Flu.
the flu virus? Or is it
Yeah.
like when someone's like, oh, like I've got a cold or I've got the flu, where it's like the
Mhm.
generic thing? So, like,
Yeah. It's like,
at
don't
this
worry,
point, like,
it's pink eye.
you've
It's
got
not.
something, sure,
Yeah,
but
sure.
does it really, in the grand scheme of things, matter anymore?
Yeah, and whatever. I don't want to knock on anybody's things, but I just find it crazy that
Yeah.
they're talking about this as, oh, is it in Canada? What's the likely impact of it? And what should you do?
Yeah.
And oh
Well,
no, what's it gonna do? And
One, this is the crazy
but
thing, is it seems that we're still monitoring all this stuff, right? So, like, they're
how much
saying that,
money
like,
are we wasting?
I don't even want to know, but like, so they're saying that it's been detected in Canada,
Yeah.
but it doesn't specify the number of
Mhm.
cases, and that the
Oh no.
number is so small that it's not visible in the weekly variant breakdown. So apparently they're not just like tracking who
There's
has COVID anymore. They're tracking all of the different variants of COVID, like it
right.
matters. And this one, they've got it, but like it's such a small number of people that like they don't even bother posting that it's a thing. So it's like, this is stupid. All of this is just
Right.
trying to ramp it up, and they're just saying that, like, well, it's still important to recognize that COVID hasn't gone away. No, it'll
Yeah.
never go away. Just like the flu is never going to go away. Just like other
Well,
common colds and illnesses are never going away.
yeah. We haven't gotten
Tell
rid
you
of
to keep,
diarrhea.
yeah,
Trust me, that'd be the best thing to get rid of. Out
yeah,
of all, I'll take the flu 24/7 compared to fucking diarrhea once a month.
yeah,
You know, like it's all these things, but it's just.
yeah,
And then you get closer to the bottom of the thing, and they're like, "Oh, well, what can you do to protect yourself?" And it's like,
yeah.
get the newest update. Like, just how many jabs are we at?
Well, and that's
Because
the
I
thing. So
haven't.
they're trying to push the newest thing. So apparently the latest version will be available in October. And they
Yeah.
do a remarkable job in reducing severe infections. Although later in the article, vaccine effectiveness from the updated vaccines will be monitored going forward. So they can't really tell you that it is or isn't any more or less
Right.
effective.
So like,
And they're still pushing this mask bullshit.
yeah, like yeah, where was it? If you don't feel well, yeah, it's recommended personal protection measures such as staying at home when sick, wearing a mask, especially indoors. So you know a bunch of people are going to be walking around the house with the mask,
Yeah.
and cleaning hands regularly. Well, cleaning hands regularly, I will 100% say I did better in COVID than I did before. But I also never got sick. Like
Yeah.
I fix equipment for a living. I'd be covered in fucking oil and grease and still eat a sandwich and put my hands on
Oh, yeah.
stuff. But you
Oh,
know,
yeah. It's
it's
just like, can we at least like, if we're gonna go like with another illness thing, can we at least change the name of it?
yeah, like
Right?
let's
Like,
but also have the stats to back it up as it
well, like,
being an
just
actual illness.
call it something other than COVID, just so that it sounds different. Like,
But
it's
you
literally
can't
running
change it.
it's literally running the same playbook, and it's like, you already did this. Let's
Yeah, and
just
it
try
failed.
something new.
But even then, even if you named it something different, once you start
Well,
realizing,
at
like,
least, oh, I know it would be the
call it
same
whatever,
thing.
right? Like, it would be the same
It-
thing where I'm like,
but
all of us would
at
realize,
least it would
oh,
have a
it's the
different
flu.
name, where it's just this, like, you're not even
Yeah,
like, you're not even trying anymore. You're literally using the same name, but it's a different
Yeah,
variant. Is it though? If you can't even really determine if it is or it isn't.
yeah, and you can't, and then they say
So
like,
yeah,
oh, you get, yeah, if you take this take the booster or whatever the newest update, because
well,
they do a remarkable job at reducing severe infection, especially those at greater risk. But we're also going to keep track of the new stuff, and it's like my,
ridiculous.
I think my brother and my dad, yeah, my brother and my dad. So I think my brother was double jabbed. I think my dad was triple, and ruined Christmas a few years ago. So my brother got it and he got sick like a fucking dog. And he's like, fine, call it COVID, call it whatever the fuck you want. He's like, he was stuffed up. He's like, I can't fucking do anything. He's like, he's like, I feel like I got hit by a bus for fucking 3-4 days. I was like, okay, so the flu. But it was around Christmas where, everybody in my family had been jabbed except for me and my family, direct family, and all these things. So we had to do the remote thing because my dad was technically positive. So we had out of town people that came down. So now they couldn't leave and go back to work on the date they were supposed to return back to work, and all this thing. It was a whole thing. So we did a virtual thing on like Skype, Facebook, whatever the fuck you want to call it. But it was hilarious because when all that started, we're like, so I went to my brother's apartment, the building, whole kit and caboodle, and like, okay, everybody give me the stuff. And I went and I dropped it off. So we all like on video opened up presents for each other, right? So he gave me the stuff for us. I brought home, none of us got sick. He was sick. But I was very specific of saying that, hey, the unvaxxed did not fuck up Christmas.
Yeah.
Right? Like 2 jabs, and then they started saying this, that, and everything. And my brother was just like, well, you guys told me I would be good. So he stopped on it. I think most of my family have stopped other than the mandatory stuff. And a lot of people are not happy about it just because they were stuck in a pickle where it's just like, why can't not work? And it's unfortunate that we've gotten to the point where we're still pushing this agenda, but we don't want to discuss the agenda of you have ruined people's lives. Some people have severe side effects. Whether it's no side effect, it's just like you put me in a predicament that I didn't feel comfortable and didn't give me a choice.
Yeah, I just can't believe that we're still pushing the same thing, but whatever. The world's gone crazy. Speaking of some crazy, House Speaker, so Mr. Ferguson, he has asked the MPs to behave better during question period after an incident. So
answer the fucking question and we wouldn't have a problem.
Well, so he gave a stern warning on Monday about improving the behavior as they prepare for a fractious debate about whether the Liberals should continue to govern. So Conservatives on Tuesday, so tomorrow, will formally introduce a promise motion asking the House of Commons to declare it has no confidence in the Liberal government or Prime Minister Justin Trudeau.
Yes.
Then there's a whole lot of going back and forth about Jagmeet and whether he's going to support the motion or not. We all know that he's probably not doing it because he needs to get
1 day past whatever to finalize his pension, right? Pension, which I hate to say, I don't entirely disagree with him, but also due to just mutual hatred against NDPs and what they stand for.
Yes.
I would hate to take someone away that has put whether I agree with what he does or not, his time, effort, and his beliefs, even though I don't agree with his beliefs, I don't want to take that away from him. So I got a better idea. Let's sign a bill that says he gets it and get him the fuck out.
Okay. So, they're getting annoyed that Oliver is calling them out.
Mhm.
in all of this, and like so things got heated, and one MP apparently was worried that it would actually get physical, and all of this nonsense, right? The problem is here, though. Ferguson is a liberal politician and has continued to support the liberals, even though he's supposed to be apolitical in his current thing, and he's been in trouble several times, during this, and like he did that commercial where he's not supposed to and all of this, and here he is again, you know trying to, I guess, under the guise of keeping order, support the liberals. So I don't know. I don't know. It just seems like he's, being less than honest in his position. Not surprising though, because he is, after all, a liberal politician. Speaking of the House, apparently the House will also not be holding a priority debate. Oh, hold on.
Oh, okay.
No
I was
worries.
like, man, I had to walk away for a second. And I was
No
like,
worries.
I'm talking. You're like, oh, going on then. I was like,
well, yeah.
oh,
So I mean,
my bad.
no, it's all good. But yeah, the House speakers will behave and everything, and it's like, okay, like fine, they have to behave and abide by the rules and all of the things, but like,
Yes.
so does he, and he in this case just seems to be not being genuine, because he's telling them to chill out and stop shit talking the liberals and Trudeau, but he is a liberal. He is part of the Liberal Party and has been in trouble for like going and doing commercials and stuff like that in support of the liberals, despite the fact that he's the Speaker of the House, and in that position he's supposed to be completely neutral.
Yes.
So I mean, it's just okay. Yeah, they have to behave, and like no unparliamentary language, no fisticuffs, and all of the things. But it just seems like he's only saying those things so that, like, people aren't being swayed against the liberals.
Yes, because yeah.
Yeah.
It's fucking annoying.
Yeah.
And I do have a feeling that you would have a hard time finding a person that is willing to stay neutral
It's hard.
on all of the yeah, it is. I do my best to do it. And
Yeah, it's
yeah,
hard,
it's not
right?
it very hard.
But that is his job, and
Yeah,
like,
that's his job.
he's telling these people to shut their mouths and do this and that, but then here he goes and does whatever he wants. So again, it's shocking, government not holding its own accountable, right? But meanwhile trying to hold other people accountable. Weird. Speaking of holding people accountable, seems to be a theme tonight.
Yes.
The House won't hold priority debate on MPs implicated in foreign interference reports.
This should not even be a debate.
Yeah, it should be like, oh, your name is on the list. There's the door.
So I will say, as long as this is not similar to the CRA account we were just talking about, where we've got 600 people we're looking into. I know, get it out. But they've also found, what, 284, I think it was, that were like, hey, you did wrong. Publish that fucking name. There's the fucking door.
Yeah.
You should not. Yeah. So
well, that's just it. Like, if okay, just because your name is on the list doesn't mean you've done anything wrong, but they should be doing the investigation about it and determining whether these people like just happen to be in the wrong place at the wrong time with the wrong people, or
so I'm not opposed to holding those names back until you've done your due diligence. 100%. And just be like,
that's how
hey,
anything should work, right?
We had 15 people on this list. We're not going to tell you who, but we did find 5. So here's the 5, and those other 10, you'll never know who the fuck they were.
But
I'm not opposed to
the investigation and determine, but you have to trust the people that, like, we had a third party verify all of the things and all, like, you got to do it in the right way, right? But
Yeah, which I
like,
don't
how do
trust the
you?
government to do anything.
Yeah, how do we trust? Like, if there are people that are still, they, we've got, I don't know, a year, in like a month or whatever it is until the next election, unless the vote of no confidence goes through.
Please.
So unless all of the people that are currently sitting don't run in the next election, how do we know that some of these people that were implicated, and even if only one of them that was implicated is actually guilty, there is still one person
Yeah. In a
that
cesspool.
should not
Dirty.
be in their position.
Yeah. And I mean,
Like, this is insane.
it is, and it, it's like I've read this article, right? I was actually really good tonight. I read all the articles prior to the show starting, and I'm like, this got me all confused. Like
Yeah.
prima
When it,
facie, and
it's all the Latin stuff that they use, yeah.
yeah, and I'm just like, okay, so like, are we looking into
But
it or not? Like, so
when
that
this,
pissed me off right off the get go
yeah.
because I was like, I don't
But
know
no,
what the
we're
fuck
not.
that means. Yeah, and then once I read the whole article, and I was like, oh, so we're just like, so they're not saying they're not gonna do their due diligence on it, but it's not a high priority.
Yeah.
Right. It's
But
at
if
like the
any,
bottom of the list.
but all of this needs to happen before that. And this is the weird part where, like, I find myself agreeing with the NDP again. Like, blows my
Yeah.
mind that happens. But one of their MPs,
Are you
Kwan,
feeling okay? Did you
yeah,
have COVID?
yeah. I'm not sure what variant though. Whichever one, I guess, makes me agree with the NDP. But yeah, one of their MPs argued that as long as the names of those politicians remain secret, Canadians will lose trust in their elected officials, undermining MPs' ability to do their job.
100%.
And I agree with that.
Yeah, 100%. I was very surprised when I saw that. I was like,
Yeah,
they came, so they're just confident, right? Well, they're confident they didn't do anything. Fine. But they're probably mostly confident. They probably had a lot of sidebars saying, hey,
yeah.
is there anybody? It's like, you know what? That guy's an asshole anyway. So fuck him, put him on, hang him out to dry.
Yeah.
So I will say that the NDP probably only did this after having many, many conversations with a bunch of the
Yeah.
NDP people to figure out, our stronghold, right? The face of the NDP is not at fault, right? We've got this like random guy that's like with us, but like we can replace him real quick. Don't worry about that. So yeah, we agree with the NDP, but they probably did their due diligence that Jug Meat is not on that list.
Yeah. Or
I mean,
she just spoke out and is now gonna not get her pension for sure. But yeah.
Yeah, but
that's all right. All while this is going on, the little potato, JT himself, had a meeting with the UN and has told everyone to ignore their differences for the greater good and that they all need to focus on climate change, and he will be co-hosting an event with European Commission chief. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think we should just leave it at that and skip the next fucking article. Fuck.
Yeah. No.
I'm not disagreeing with like, hey, let's ignore differences, right? And
yes.
come for the greater good. I just have a giant issue with what he thinks the differences are and the greater good is. But I stand by what he says, where he should agree with the Conservatives and vote himself as non-confident so we can have an election and get him out now. When he does that, I'll agree with everything he said in the statement.
Yeah, but yes, he will. Yes, the co-hosting an event on climate change, carbon pricing, and industrial decarbonization.
So how long has the carbon tax been in effect?
Yeah, this is just, I don't know, too long.
But like ballpark, 3, 4, 5? Like
as different things have been in place for a while.
Yeah. But let's just say
But-
the specific carbon tax and the carbon tax rebate and all these things. Have we changed anything?
No, nothing's got. Well, yeah, we've changed the cost of everything, making it more expensive, but we haven't made anything better.
Right?
But all this is going on, and so like, again, I don't want to pick sides on anything, but like, there are definitely more pressing things going on in the world right now: Russia, Ukraine, the whole Israel Palestine thing.
is Israel,
right? Like,
and
so
being able to afford
guys,
grapes for my fucking daughter.
Forget all of that.
Yeah.
Climate change and decarbonization of industry. Those are the things. Like, put aside your religious and cultural differences that have you literally killing one another, and start thinking about climate change.
Yeah. And yeah, it's how much is this going to cost us?
Yeah. Like, fuck. But it's okay, guys, because also while he was doing that, he will appear on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert, because other things that are super important that he needs to do while he's out and about in New York.
Yeah, I mean,
again, like, sinking
like
ship, and here he is, like.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, it's been a long time since I've watched the Stephen Colbert show.
I just put it in there because it's like he's in New York, so of course he's doing like the thing, like.
Yeah, he's doing the thing, but it's just like.
Well, but he's trying to drum up support because like he's doing so terrible, but like realistically, if
they're not going to talk about the terrible on the Colbert show,
the thing, right?
Like, that's the fucking problem.
And I certainly don't want to give him tips on how to win the next election, but like, I don't know, maybe if you started to actually do something good for the country, like release the names of the people on the aforementioned list, people would start having some faith in you and like start trusting you again. But nobody trusts you.
No, you ran on the thing of being an open and transparent government, right? Have we gotten any names from the SNC Lavalin?
Yeah, and he has continued to do everything that, like.
How many years ago was that?
Yeah, the most untrusted politician in history, I would say. Like,
I trusted his dad more than him.
Yeah. Yeah.
I trusted Chrétien more than him. And he smoked because of his crooked mouth. He didn't inhale.
Yeah.
Right? Like, but
nonsense.
I mean,
absolute nonsense.
I kind of wish I had TV just to watch this.
You're not missing
Stephen Colbert. No, I'm sure I'm not, but it's just, those late night shows, like, they can be entertaining, but I'm like, you're also making yourself a bubble because there's not going to be an honest conversation, right? I mean,
absolutely, especially on that one.
And we can all talk about how, I just had his name and now I can't remember. Who was the guy that came to the border and asked for him? American. He had the interview with Putin.
Yeah. Hannity?
No. He was just on a few podcasts or whatever.
I know. I can't think of his name right now.
Also, yeah, go on.
To respond to the problem. See, you say that you don't trust Castro because he was a communist, except that, like, you could trust that whatever he said, Tucker Carlson, Chris Henry.
There you go. Yeah.
But
that's it.
You could trust
Tucker
Castro.
Carlson.
You would trust that he would do the communist thing.
Yeah. Right. So, I would love to have someone. I don't care how long this interview is. If it's a 5-minute conversation with Trudeau.
That's all he's going to get at most. And it's going to be so superficial.
But I just want someone to have a 5-minute conversation where they ask, preferably questions I would ask.
Yeah.
But just questions in general, and he has to answer them truthfully.
Yeah. And if he doesn't, He gets
Yeah.
an electroshock or something. Nothing dangerous that would harm him, but just
No.
something uncomfortable. And it
And not
becomes increasingly more uncomfortable every
Yeah.
time he lies or doesn't answer a question.
and nothing with the probe because he's probably like it. But
Exactly.
but just those things where I'm just like, I've come to terms with I'm not the best person for many things. But I find I'm a good judgment of what I do for a living, and I do things because I'm like, my boss didn't answer. So I'm just like, fuck it. I'm doing what I think is good. Whether that costs money, whether that's me doing something and telling someone else to go do something. And then, hey, if there's any flack, you send them my fucking way. I'll answer for it and I'll give you my justification. And then you can tell me from the corporate side why you think I'm fucking wrong. And I'm like, I'll do my best to do what you think is best next time. Right. But I stand, I'll be accountable for anything I do. You can tell me I'm wrong. That can make me lose my job, whatever. I'm good with that. I don't want it to happen, obviously, don't get me wrong, but the integrity of a person, not even politician, we're not even talking man, we're just talking people in general. They, them, it, that, Zer, that whole bullshit. The integrity of someone's word and what they think and say nowadays has disappeared. And that's the problem with society. That has been the giant downfall of everything we are dealing with, and why we have made 432 episodes of the person going on the Colbert Show, and no accountability on, we'll say what, 95% of anything that has come out of his mouth. He's taken accountability for very little, but a giant part of it, right? You ran on something that said you were going to be see-through, transparent, this, that, blah, blah, blah. Whatever the fuck you want to call it. You shit the bed. You need to be accountable for it. And nobody wants to take accountability for anything nowadays. And that's the problem.
Yeah. Well, fuck all of them. But if you'd like to hold us accountable, feedback at CanadianPatriotPodcast.com, as some of you have done in the past.
It's been a while.
But we might ridicule you, but that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
We're just butthurt that you're, holding us accountable. We're lashing out because we're irresponsible children.
That can buy alcohol.
Yeah, that's okay. Pierre, where can people find you and or your other half and your tax shelter?
You can find me here. That's about it. You can find me or my better half occasionally on the other CPP on Sunday nights, Canadian Prepper Podcast. Tax shelter. I'm pretty sure our website expired. I'm not interested in spending that much money to renew it, but off the wall customizing at Gmail, we can probably make you a shirt that will either get you on Facebook due to someone getting offended, or spark a conversation with someone you would probably enjoy having a conversation with.
Well, there you go. It worked. It's win-win. Either you find someone you like, or it repels people you don't. Excellent. Exactly. If you have listened to the show this long, you definitely deserve a discount. So use the code Patriot at checkout at ragnaroktactical.ca. You can find me personally on Instagram, UrbexGTA. I also have it on good authority that my people have talked to Rod's people, and we are getting this sorted, and that Rod will appear on CPP. So excellent news there.
Yep.
We will be sure to keep everyone posted on that. And we would also like to remind everyone that you are a small